earlier this week, we found out that Brett Yormark thinks the Big 12 could be getting its new TV deal within a few weeks. A surprising timeline thrown out there. But now, we know what that number might be, the magic dollar figure that would get it done with ESPN and Fox for the Big 12. More on that in just a moment. Welcome into the channel. I am John Kurtz. If you're new here, talk college football all week here on this channel, particularly Big 12 football and conference realignment. You're going to get the college football week from a Big 12 slant and all the conference realignment updates you want here on this channel. Please consider subscribing if you have not, and make sure you click that alert bell to know every time I'm going live, which is Wednesday and Sunday, and whenever any content comes out in between. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so on Venmo. It's John-Kurtz-4. Okay, so to recap, earlier this week, Brett Yormark and CBS Sports came together, both reporting. I guess I say reporting. Brett Yormark had quotes out there about thinking this would be done within a few weeks. He did that on Sirius XM Radio, the Big 12 channel on Sirius XM Radio. CBS Sports also had a report preceding that. It was Dennis Dodd who wrote that, so I'm going to read a little bit to you from that just to get you caught up to speed. So it says the Big 12 could have a new media rights deal in place with ESPN and Fox within a matter of weeks, sources tell CBS Sports. Yormark expects per-school media rights revenue to increase from its current deal despite the losses of Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC beginning in 2025. So remember, that's been a pretty common refrain. Most in the Big 12, whether it's athletic directors, when we've seen them speak out publicly, or reports that have come out, everything continues to push. The Big 12 will increase its per-team payout from where they're at right now, which is crazy considering Bob Bowlesby was telling Texas legislatures not that long ago, a little over a year ago, that 50% of $28 million per year in TV revenue was going to be gone because of Texas and Oklahoma. So that would be a heck of an accomplishment if it actually happens. More from the Dennis Dodd article, and this is probably my favorite part and the headliner of the earlier article this week. It says, asked how a new media rights figure could surpass $43 million per program, Yormark told CBS Sports, quote, "I'm a good salesman." He stressed the value of live sports, the unknown of who is going to win, which has long been the attraction of TV rights. All right, so some of these numbers are going to get confusing. I'll try and keep you all straight here throughout this video, but I just mentioned $28 million. $28 million is what the Big 12 was taking in per school purely on a Tier 1, Tier 2 TV rights standpoint. Fox, ESPN, right? $43 million would be the total media revenue payout, which is going to include college football playoff, the NCAA tournament, and some other things that come into play there. So don't get those numbers too confused right now. We'll break down the important ones here in just a moment. But hell of a quote from Brett Yormark, who is certainly very, very confident, and that has ruffled some feathers in Pac-12 country. I can tell you that much. Again, more on that coming up here in this video, because you know that the Pac-12 propaganda machine had a response to everything that happened this week with Brett Yormark making headlines once again. Okay, so it was an easy question to ask after we heard that earlier this week. All right, a lot of talk about this. Yormark seems very confident. Deal could get done. What is that deal going to be? Would think that Brett Yormark has a magic number. We've got to get to this before I actually make a deal. And I would imagine that that number has been talked about ad nauseum with the athletic directors in the league, and they all kind of have an idea of what that number is that they would need to get to where everybody would feel good about it and want to go ahead and make this deal instead of waiting another 16 months where you could let the value of live sports continue to increase, right? We're going through a lot of inflation all over the place. Numbers are going to drift upward if you wait longer, and you'd have more competition, but there are some advantages to doing it right now as well. We got a little bit of info on this, and in fact, the bit of info on what that number could be from Andrew Marchand of the New York Post, sports media columnist with the New York Post. We've mentioned him before. This guy's dialed in. He's very clued into what's going on, and I listen, certainly, when he speaks. And on his podcast, so this is not an article, but this was from his podcast earlier this week, what he said the number is $400 million per year. So obviously you divide that by 12 for all the schools, $400 million per year. Some other things that he said, he did say, this is a quote from him, a direct quote, "I think the sides are apart at the moment, but there's movement." So I think that kind of plays into the timeline of a couple weeks for Yormark, that ESPN and Fox are not where he wants them to be right now, but could definitely get there pretty soon, and that they are having significant talks. And so it backs up. I think there's this idea that the Pac-12 folks think that Yormark is just a con man. This does provide some validity to the statements that he's making about having significant conversations. I think that drew the ire of some when he said that these are meaningful conversations, not just hey, very, very preliminary discussions, nowhere near a deal. This would be some proof for Yormark that he's working towards a deal. Now, Marshawn, it's interesting. His opinion was he says if he were the Big 12, he would probably wait to get more bidders at the table in 16 months and try and make more money. And he said if he's Fox or ESPN, he would do the deal now and basically pay a little bit more right now than you want to save more money in the long term, which I can understand that completely. And I'll be honest, I'm a little bit torn. I'm a little bit torn as to whether or not to go ahead and jump in front of the Pac-12 and do it now. Also, Marshawn added, getting it done quickly to make a statement is kind of what Yormark is looking to do. And there's a lot of insinuation here, and I think to me, I won't even insinuate it. To me, it's pretty obvious. A big chunk of this, trying to get it done early, would be to simply dangle this deal in front of the Four Corner schools, right? You're trying to win over the Four Corner schools and say, hey, look, we've already got a deal done. You can come to this league with more stability now, where we've given up our grant of rights. We're not going to be like Oregon and Washington and be wandering eye, holding out, just going for a medium-term grant of rights, whatever. We've signed up. We've got the stability. Now we're going to have comparable money. We've already got that money, and we've linked up with the two most visible entities here, ESPN and Fox, as opposed to Amazon, which is probably where you're going to wind up in the Pac-12. So you're building that total package to dangle in front of the Four Corner schools. Now, I know I breezed past this, $400 million, right? You hear that number and like, okay, what does that mean? You're getting out a calculator, divided by 12, what exactly is that? All right, well, I can tell you, divided by 12, that is $33 million. So again, let's keep all these numbers straight, because you've heard 28 per year, you've heard 43 per year, and now you're seeing if the number is 400 mil, that would be 33 per year for Big 12 schools. Okay, this is how it breaks down. Again, Tier 1, Tier 2 TV money is what this would be. Doesn't include money from the playoff, doesn't include NCAA tournament, doesn't include, if you are Texas or Oklahoma, your Tier 3 media rights. But in just TV revenue, this would be up $5 million per year per school from where it has been, which is $28 million. So if the Big 12 is able to get a deal that is $400 million per year total, that's an increase of $5 million per year per school from where they're at right now. So modest increase, certainly when you hold it in regard to the Big 10 and the SEC, but we knew that was going to be the case. And once again, not that long ago, Bob Bowlesby, talking to the Texas legislature in 2021, was saying that the 8 schools remaining basically had a value of $14 million per year here. So, okay, we're going over double that from where it looked like it was going to be just over a year ago. So it's a lot of progress for the league. So nothing to sneeze at. It's not any crazy number. And I think Big 12 Twitter probably got a little crazy with some of the speculation there for a while on what this number could be. It's not a crazy number, but it's a solid number, and one that I think in the long run, all things considered, would be pretty good. Definitely a step up from where you were at a year ago. Now, again, I mentioned I'm kind of torn on this because I understand the idea of putting together this total package of more stability, more visibility, and similar money to the Four Corner schools and dangling it in front of them. And Yormark seems to be very confident in himself as a salesman, quite obviously, as evidenced by that line earlier. But I do have my doubts. I mean, I still certainly have my doubts. And I know Pac-12 propaganda machine will tell you absolutely zero chance that that's happening, that anybody's leaving. I think it's a probably non-zero chance, but I also don't think it's a likely chance right now necessarily until we know what the Pac-12 deal is going to be that gets put in front of them and how willing Oregon, Washington, Stanford, etc. would be to actually sign that. So it's definitely a risk. It's definitely a risk. I also do think there's value in, even if you don't get the Four Corner schools, just being the first, getting in front of the Pac-12, taking away some of the potential slots there. It's been said Fox would probably just be out on the Pac-12 at that point, so it'd be like ESPN and Amazon. You would be pushing them further into non-visibility. Maybe Siberia is a little bit strong, but pushing them further into having to go down that Amazon road where it would be tougher to see those games and have less visibility. So there are advantages there from a marketing standpoint. Look, we just beat them to the table. We got to deal with the two big players in college football. Brett Yormark can certainly sell that regardless of whether or not it's going to bring in the Four Corner schools. But I do understand the basic principle that in 16 months, live sports, it's going to be worth more. You also, Brett Yormark said it, he compared it earlier to betting on yourself, right? And if the league continues to soar and do very well, especially when you're going to have 2 very interesting years of 14 teams in this league, maybe that can spark some extra interest because things get really wild and crazy while that's going on. So you're missing out on that opportunity. So this is a calculated risk if it happens. But I would not go so far as what the Pac-12 propaganda machine did. John Canzano, of course, wrote a piece about this. The tone, I would say, of it was basically that Brett Yormark is a con man, Now, those are my words, not his, but that's really the insinuation here, is that like this guy's a sleazy salesman who has been making things up, like the whole they're still upset about the entire hey, the Big 12 shut down the Pac-12 idea for joining together for an alliance basically between the two conferences. Remember when that happened back in like June, and it was reported by Pete Thamel? Pac-12 propaganda machine hated that. They're still complaining about that. But let me read you some of John Canzano's article. It says, that's Yormark, who's now employed as the Big 12 Conference Commissioner. His act is one giant sales pitch. Keep that in mind when you hear him float the idea that his conference may be closing in on a media rights deal with ESPN and Fox. Ask yourself, who's he selling today? Multiple conference sources continue to tell me that Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and Arizona State aren't interested in leaving the Pac-12 for the Big 12. They've never wavered, and I believe them. But maybe Yormark is chumming the waters anyway. One current Pac-12 conference AD waved it off on Friday morning and told me our path is clear and we are progressing nicely. So certainly Canzano is not buying any of that as far as the Four Corner schools go. I'm much more inclined to believe that than I am just the idea. I mean, this article, I came away from it reading like, okay, so it's a bad thing that he's an excellent salesman. We're just breezing over him, exploding the popularity of NASCAR. If he's going to make a lot of money, which he did for NASCAR, signing the biggest deal in North American sports history, and he's going to explode them in popularity. If that's what he's going to do for the Big 12, man, sign me the hell up. Explode in popularity, more money, that'd be great. So I like a lot of what I'm seeing there. Pac-12 country, you've got a guy in George Kliavkoff who's taking the total opposite road, not being very public with any of his statements at all. So look, you can check it out if you want to on Canzano's blog. We'll talk more about it. I'll give you more of the details on the story in the live show coming up on Sunday. So if you're watching this when it's first coming out on Saturday, you've still got that to look forward to. But for now, that's where we're at. Sounds like the Big 12 is hoping to get $400 million per year, which would be about $33 million per school, which is an increase of about $5 million. So if that total was $43 million before, you'd be looking at closer to like 48. And maybe with some of the other factors, I'm not sure. Maybe you can push your way up towards 50, but you're creeping toward like a $50 million per year overall payout there for the Big 12, basically would be my understanding here. So not this bombshell number, but not bad at all for the Big 12 either, considering where we have come. Once again, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. You'll get live shows from me Wednesday and Sunday every week. It's a blast. We have a lot of really good fans there and a lot of great discussion about the Big 12, college football, and conference realignment. Make sure to turn the bell on, too. You can find me on Twitter at JL Kurtz, and you can donate to the Venmo page to support the channel. It's John-Kurtz-4. Appreciate all you guys. Take care, and I will talk to you on the next live show soon.